I'm sure we all remember Nevada rancher Cliven Bundy, who, after 20 years in court, refused to pay taxes to use the federal land that he was using. This caused an incident with the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. They came down to kick him off, and we all remember those militias that showed up to back him up on this and threatened an armed standoff with the government. Well, something that's happening now, these militia members aren't leaving. They're staying there, and they are no longer remaining on the ranch. They are, in fact, now occupying the town, and according to many reports, are terrorizing the local population. Enough so that the government is becoming concerned. Democratic Representative Steve Horsford has now sent a letter to the local sheriff asking him to step in and deal with the situation because of complaints that are being made and the frankly downright kind of terrorist-ish nature of what's going on in this town and what those militia members are doing. They are no longer just remaining on this guy's ranch. They are now maintaining, quote, permanent presences on highways and country roads. They've even taken it upon themselves to set up checkpoints where they are stopping people and demanding identification. Hotels in Mesquite, the Bunkerville area, are reporting that this occupation by these militias have already cost them over $100,000 in revenue. Already now, since April, this hotel has received 8 threats by telephone. According to them, members of the militia are threatening their business and have been doing so at least since April. According to several reports, a Holiday Inn Express was evacuated for 4 hours about 2 weeks ago because somebody called in a bomb threat. Now, this was done because that Holiday Inn Express had actually rented rooms to members of the BLM Rangers who were there to deal with the Bundy Ranch situation. Workers at the hotel claimed that they were threatened by the militia members, saying that they had to kick out the BLM while they were staying there, or they would not be there in the morning. And others threatened to take them outside and have them shot if they didn't remove or cancel the reservations of the BLM officers. Let's just take a moment and think about this. What are we really seeing here? Isn't this kind of like the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist kind of dream? I mean, on the one hand, you got this guy claiming his right, and the right of these individuals to have this militia, and it is a guaranteed right. Yet, on the other side, you have this business owner. He has the right to rent rooms to whoever he chooses. Yet, this militia doesn't like that, and they have the right to be there and fight for their rights, or in this case, Bundy's rights, which they claim the federal government is on. Isn't it very interesting to notice the contradiction here? You have this militia that's bullying a private company. The private company has a right to rent to who they want, yet the militia has a right to be there and do what it is that they're doing, relatively so, because the initiation of force is on the side of the government who's doing what they're doing. Now, what would really happen in anarcho-capitalist land if this happened? Wouldn't the business be going over to some kind of private police and saying, look, I got this problem, these people are harassing me, ... here's your money, come in and do something? So essentially, what do we end up with? A skirmish that's very similar to what we would see with the war on drugs. Yeah, I think that's actually pretty close to what we have. We would definitely have a shootout. Would this be the war on drugs? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying a similar type skirmish. It's just very interesting when I looked at this and wondered, what would, ANCAPs actually think in this situation. Now let us consider the bluster coming out of these militias about people's rights and what they should be allowed to do in his supposed freedom to use federal land without having to pay for it. What are they doing with these checkpoints? They are stopping people and demanding identification to prove that they live there. This is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. These are private individuals violating the Constitution. For what reason? Their own petty defense of some millionaire rancher who doesn't want to pay his taxes. So you notice the contradiction here in that we stand for freedom, or we are defending freedom, yet here they are clearly violating the Fourth Amendment. And before you ask, yes, when a private person can violate the Constitution. It is possible. I mean, a lot of these sovereign citizen types feel that I would imagine a lot of these people actually feel that the Constitution only applies to the government and doesn't apply to private individuals. Well, it most certainly does. And what these people are doing is violating what they believe to be a fundamental right, and that would be the Constitution. Another interesting thing about these checkpoints is that they bring to mind what the Department of Homeland Security was doing with, immigration checkpoints. And the ruling was that it was constitutional to do so. You don't have to answer them, but there's technicalities to this that the courts feel makes these immigration checkpoints constitutional. I was just noting the similarity here in that this whole situation with demanding people show ID to that they live there or they have a right to be there is very reminiscent of the old papers please thing that the Nazis did. The government clearly didn't step in when they should have when these armed militias showed up. And this, if it continues, is most certainly going to provoke that reaction from the federal government. And frankly, they should have already gone in there and done something about this by now. I can only assume that the government is standing there plotting how they're actually going to deal with this. And a lot of people are saying, well, you can't side with the government in this case. I think, yeah. It's not so much that I support the federal government, but I don't give a shit about these these right-wing racist militias and what it is that they're doing. Essentially, they're up in arms because some millionaire has to pay his taxes for land that he's basically, I believe, illegally using. Now, you don't get to have a citizens uprising in this kind of situation because some millionaire doesn't want to pay his taxes. I think this whole situation also does show something else. I think it demonstrates the kind of extremist ideology that is actually behind the ownership of private property. Now, this is the basis for what it is. Obviously, in our modern society, we have a more civilized way of dealing with it. We have police, we have state-enforced contracts, police forces, things like that. But this is that extremist belief that ANCAPs have, that this is their right to do. This potentially very dangerous military standoff is from that extremist idea that private property is somehow a quote-unquote natural right, when in essence there are no natural rights, because rights don't exist in nature. They are things that people create. They are social constructs. I mean, everybody has to have some kind of concept of human rights, but to claim that any kind of right is inherently natural is false, because of course the concept of rights themselves is a social construct. My point here was to point out the kind of hypocrisy and the inherent kind of real nature of the extremist ideology that can stand and forms the actual basis of the ownership of private property. Thank you for watching. Please comment and rate the video. If you liked it, hit subscribe or check out some of these other great videos. If you wish, share it on social media. While you're at it, why don't you follow me on Twitter? And if you got time, go on over to the MRN bookstore and check out some of the latest books available.